into 2024, and we're kicking it off with something that doesn't have an anniversary. There's really no reason we're discussing it at all. Kyle,
I need to know why, though.
Kyle, what made you land on Ghost of Frankenstein of all movies?
I honestly don't recall.
Did you mean to write a Hammer Frankenstein movie down and wrote the wrong thing?
No, so what?
Because that's what I thought happened.
I think what had happened, Matt, and this was just a throwaway comment, and you probably say it once a year, that horror movie night should do more like old black and white horror, right? And I have no idea why I ended up choosing it.
Listen, I'm going to tell you something right now, buddy. This would have been on my long list anyway. As someone who did all of the black and white rewatches over Halloween, when I got to this one, I was like, this is such a weird fucking movie, and it's under 70 minutes long. There is zero reason why we couldn't get something out of this.
The timing was part of it. I think I was like, it's short. It's Frankenstein, like it's a property that we can talk about. It's fourth in the 5
this
original
is the fourth
saga.
One?
Yeah, I thought it was the last one.
In a lot of ways, it's the last one because the fifth one gets murky because that's House of Frankenstein, which is like, if you know anything about the House of movies, there was House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula. They were kind of just like a let's throw the whole universe together type film where it's like Dracula and the Wolfman find the Frankenstein monster. And they did like a series of movies of that off of the popularity of Abbott and Costello. So it can't
be nearly as fun as Igor finding the monster in this one, where he's just yes, here's how you were preserved and here's what happened. Like, this movie is exposition city, and in the most beautiful way, like in classic Hollywood way.
So something, now that you're bringing that up, because yes, we start the movie, Igor finds the monster in sulfur, and the makeup that Lon Chaney had to wear, the makeup that Lon Chaney had to wear to portray the monster emerging from the sulfur was an extremely difficult burden for Chaney. It said, in order to get the right look of the monster trapped in the sulfur pit, Jack Pierce essentially covered Lon Chaney with cement. And only provided a hole for him to breathe out of by placing a straw in his mouth. The makeup process...
That's a Hail Mary.
Yeah. The makeup process lasted from 6 a.m. until noon, at which point the cast and crew would all go to lunch, leaving Chaney alone on the set while the cement-based makeup would dry on him.
Yeah, that's union. You know, whether you're going to get actual, makeup effects people or people off the street who mix cement and pour it, at 6 hours is 6 hours. And you have to take a union break. That's just how that works. Sorry, bud.
That's so crazy. And Jack Pierce is like, I mean, that's a pretty notable name in like 40s makeup. Like, he created the Frankenstein that we know. He did the Wolfman effects. I'm pretty sure he helped out with the Creature from the Black Lagoon design. Like, but yeah.
No, Jack Pierce is huge. Like, so I mean, that feels like maybe it wasn't a budget thing. Maybe it was like literally that's how he thought it was going to be best. So, we live and we learn. The movies are not that old at this point in time. We're learning things. It's fun.
It is wild to think of a time where there are people seeing Frankenstein who were alive before movies existed. You know what I mean? Like, it's still that novel to think about.
That's interesting. I was watching this and I was like, this movie's older than my parents. It's 5 years older than my parents. And I was like, this is an interesting watch. I didn't take a lot of notes. It felt fun, but I didn't enjoy it nearly as much as like Creature Walks Among Us. If we're talking about the Universal monsters.
But Creature, the thing that's so easy to forget is Creature was so much later than all of these movies. You know what I mean? Like, the heyday of like Frankenstein, Dracula, Mummy, Wolfman.
Yeah,
they were all 30s into the early 40s, and the first Creature movie came out in 55. Yeah. Like, it was much later. Like,
I never realized that it was that late. I thought that the first one was like in the 40s, but that makes sense because eco-terror kind of didn't hit until a couple years after World War II was done.
And they like popped those three out rapid fire. So there's a podcast. I feel like I'm safe in saying this because it's probably been announced by the time this episode comes out, or will just about to be announced. We're adding another horror podcast to the network.
Oh no!
I'm gonna fight them.
It's hosted. It's hosted by my friend Gary, who is the saxophone player in the ska band Backyard Superheroes, and he's been doing the podcast for a year. It was called the Monster Rally Podcast, and they literally watched every single Universal Monsters film from front to end, and they just put out the Creature Walks Among Us episode, which is the last episode in the original Universal run. We're bringing them on because they're about to do their second season, which Gary and I have talked a little bit, and it sounds like it's literally just going to be like discussing every movie from that point on that was inspired by the Universal Monsters. So doing like the Brendan Fraser Mummy and doing like the newest Invisible Man and like all of that stuff. Yeah, like just tackling all of them, good or bad. I want to put in a request to be on the Memoirs of an Invisible Man movie coverage. The weird John Carpenter Chevy Chase movie.
So strange. We could do a crossover episode with them to do Dracula Untold, because Dracula Untold is turning 10 this year, and it's it's the top of my list. If you guys go to my Trello, you can see that it's the top. It's in the top 5.
I'll see that. I will ask Gary if he wants to promote the podcast.
I wrote down a Patreon idea for us was to be like the best iterations of classic monsters, like our favorite iteration beyond, the original Universal.
Let's do it.
Well, I'm going to throw this out there while you're bringing that up. Watching this movie, I have to say, I kind of like Lon Chaney Jr.'s take on Frankenstein a little bit more than Boris Karloff's. I think that there's something in the way he performs that character that I was overwhelmingly charmed by.
Yeah. No, he has something going on there.
Yeah, I feel like you could have told me that they were both the same person. I would have been like, okay, because it's Frankenstein,
Yeah. I think for me it's that Lon Chaney is a bigger guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he's like a wider guy, so I think he just makes Frankenstein. Karloff was like a taller guy. Mm-hmm. Whereas like Chaney just had like mass, so I was like, I think that there's just something.
It's all
creepy.
The cement too.
Yeah, it's the cement helps. Really is. Let's just be clear though for listeners that we know when we refer to Frankenstein, we're talking about Frankenstein's monster.
Yes, obviously.
We are not.
But yeah. I just don't want to say the monster over and over and over again.
No.
This movie does do a fun little, hey, if you want to save 2 minutes, feel free to fast forward, where they just play clips from the first Frankenstein to get you caught up.
This is why I thought it was a perfect horror movie night. Like, it solidified it for me. I was like, why did I choose this? And I actually wrote, I was like, oh, it's a perfect horror movie night movie. There's a good chunk of exposition brought to us by playing the first movie or a movie prior.
It's literally Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 right there.
Or Feeders 2.
Or big sets. Igor just going to town on his horn, his big-ass horn.
Well, and I want to bring up Igor, too, because here's another controversial statement. I won't say that this is a better performance than Dracula, but this is like the most fun Bela Lugosi performance. He is unfucking hinged as Igor in this movie.
Igor is the true vehicle of this movie, or maybe this is an Igor vehicle of a movie.
Yeah.
I felt like he was the character that kept me engaged, because I was like, you're insane. I was not shocked that it was Igor's brain in the monster's head. Right. Eventually, I did think that the monster, when he's on top of the building or whatever, when they get to
get the ball,
Visaria or whatever the name of the town is, he's who does he hold out by their ankle? Is it the kid, or is it a guy who's coming after him?
I think it's a guy who's coming for him.
Swipes a guy.
Yeah,
you leave a monster alone for 10 seconds. You leave him alone for 10 seconds, and all of a sudden he's up on the roof, and he's throwing people off the roof, and he's holding on to little girls, and it's bad. It's bad news. You can't do that.
But you know what? Like so I guess we're like speed running through this. So basically, what happens in this movie, and then we'll kind of explain some of these moments deeper. But the very quick pitch of this movie is that it takes place after Son of Frankenstein. Son of Frankenstein is a wild watch if you're a fan of Young Frankenstein, because you realize that Mel Brooks literally just is copying that script, like beat by beat, character by character.
So the movies go Frankenstein, Bride, Son, Ghost, House. Okay, thank you.
So in Son of Frankenstein, we finally meet Igor. That's the first time we actually truly meet Igor, played by Bela Lugosi. They make a reference to this in the beginning of Ghost of Frankenstein, but he walks awkwardly because they tried to hang him and he wouldn't die, so he's got this weird like neck twist and hump from that. And he, at the end of it, Frankenstein sinks into the sulfur. They believe that, at the time, they believe that Igor is also dead. And then, as we see, he's still alive. He blazes the horn for the monster. The villagers are sick of it. They decide that they need to burn down the castle entirely.
The music sucks.
Yeah. In doing so, they actually help Frankenstein get loose from the sulfur. And Igor decides that he needs to go to the last of the Frankenstein bloodline to help him. That Frankenstein believes, if I put the brain of a good person in this monster, the monster can be utilized for good. Igor decides he wants to have his brain put into the monster for reasons mostly
immortality,
revenge.
Right?
Immortality and revenge.
Yeah.
So he coerces the person who is the assistant to Dr. Frankenstein, like, hey, this guy's making you look like a schlub. You were his teacher, and now, like, look where you are. Like, I promise that I'll make sure that you're infamous. Meanwhile, the monster actually wants the little girl's brain.
Yes.
Because he's like, this girl is pure innocence. She's sweet. She's lovely. She's everything I wish I was.
Cut her open.
Slice her open.
So get that shit out of her head.
The Ghost of Frankenstein, the titular Ghost of Frankenstein, shows up for approximately 90 seconds.
Yeah.
I missed it. I straight up missed it for a minute. I went to the kitchen. I came back, and Carly had
It's
to tell
your
me that there was a
movie
ghost.
pick.
I know.
She said, hey, a ghost showed up. He's gone now.
Like,
You'll never
shit, that's
see
the
him again."
ghost. Get him.
The Ghost of Frankenstein. But yeah, I mean, I have to give credit where credit's due. According to IMDb, Universal Studios actually had a pretty cool marketing campaign for this movie, where they wanted theaters to put an empty chair in the lobby with a sign that just said, "Will you please lend us your brain?" The Ghost of Frankenstein. I'm like, you know what? For 1940 whatever, I'll take it.
42.
That's pre-William Castle, baby. Like, that's pretty creative.
Yeah, I like
This
it.
feels 10 years after Frankenstein. It does. It feels correct.
Ooh,
what was that?
What was that tasty little
Well,
pop?
so while it's not maybe Ghost or Frankenstein or Ghost of Frankenstein related, it is our first episode of 2024. So I got and hey, fuck 2023 too, beer by Abomination Brewing as a toast to 2023 and all the fun that we had then.
Love
And,
it.
and
Love it.
Kyle already
Scott had
saw
something earlier.
that I have the biggest bottle of Jägermeister, and I just took a sip while you were talking, Matt, and Kyle could barely contain himself.
I was like,
See,
I'm
looking at my notes. I missed it.
Yeah, some people miss the Ghost
it
of
was
Frankenstein. Some people
huge.
miss
It's
the
a
Ghost
huge
of my
bottle.
respect. Yeah, it's literally like it's the opposite of when we did Humongous, and I had a tiny bottle of like whiskey or whatever it was. This makes me look like an absolute child. I'm the little girl drinking a bottle of Jägermeister today.
But I mean, the downside to this movie being as short as it is and as old as it is that the pacing is not exactly ideal. It's like start strong, end strong. 30 solid minutes of just villagers and the doctor trying to decide if he's going to do this or
I
not.
love the villager that milkmaid, I guess.
Yeah.
The first person that they run into when they come into the town, her hair is perfectly coiffed. She's definitely wearing hose and like really nice shoes. It makes no sense.
To a village that doesn't have. Oh no, I guess that's the other village. I was like, this village doesn't have bread according to like the town meeting that happened before.
Yeah.
And this woman has nice shoes. I don't know.
I think my favorite villager is the little girl's father, who no one has ever been calmer about their child being kidnapped, as he just like shows up to the
by
meeting
a
and
reanimated corpse.
Yeah, he shows up to the meeting and he's just like, everyone believed my daughter had died in the fire, but we've checked the fire and there's no bones, which means she must be kidnapped. And I'm like, that's so calm.
Sociopathy.
He's just so chill about the fact that his like 4-year-old is MIA.
Maybe he's got another one elsewhere, and he's like, I can get rid of this one. It's fine.
Yeah, he's
listen,
one of those
Scott,
people
you
who
and I
believe in
come
a
from that
spare.
not having kids perspective. The biggest argument I've ever gotten into in the history of playing games with people was playing categories. And it was the letter C and the category was things you can replace, and I wrote children. And I said,
you can always is hilarious.
I said you can always have another one. I don't understand.
They are a renewable resource.
And then it was years later.
Why are we burning them for fuel?
People fought with me about it. And then those very same people, we all went to see Hamilton together, and I was doing research on Alexander Hamilton and said, hey, did you know that when his son died, he had another baby and named it the same name as his son who died? So I guess you can replace children.
Man, we are losing listeners left and right. This is what a way to start 2024.
Hey, listen, this is the new year. This is the new year for horror movie night.
New year, new us.
Hello, everyone. We're Superhero Stuff You Should Know. And if you think you know about superheroes and comic books, think again.
We got romance. We got action.
Romance.
We got comedy. We got everything you need, man. Come on down to Superhero Stuff You Should Know for all your superhero needs.
I don't know about this romance. What part are you talking about?
We've got all kinds of sketches and then deep dives on top of that. Come on down to Superhero Stuff You Should Know.
All right. So come on down to... Wait, why did I say come on down? To Superhero Stuff You Should Know.
All right. Well, Kyle, you picked this, and that means that you get the exciting job of kicking us off with a double feature. So what would your double feature for Ghost of Frankenstein be?
Well, how much electricity is enough electricity to get this person back to life? And the only thing that answers that to me is Ghost in the Machine. I just
in my brain I was like, he's gonna say Ghost in the Machine.
They are not related at all. But upon recording this, we've been reviewing
I almost
2020.
said, what is your double feature and why is it Ghost in the Machine? And I stopped myself because I'm like, I don't want to lead the witness.
Was Ghost in the Machine a Kyle pick or a Matt pick?
That was a Matt pick.
That was a Matt pick, yeah. That
but
was a Matt pick.
Kyle and I have both pretty much, well, I mean, all three of us have truly sung the praises of it.
Yes.
Kyle and I have used it for double features many a times.
Yeah.
Let's just say that's the real double feature.
While it wouldn't be fun, I also think I, Frankenstein would just be the worst.
Is it... But, is it watchable? It's come up on streaming services for me many times, and I've never watched it.
I really don't think it's watchable.
Do you want to throw on a movie while you clean your house and there's just
a
movie on in the background? May I suggest I, Frankenstein?
Do you want to pretend it was the last year that you had cable and had TNT on in the background? then I Frankenstein's for you.
So my double feature is going to be a little bit more practical than Kyle's. I'm going to go with the 1941 Wolfman movie, which I'm not just picking for the sake of picking a movie. It actually shares 4 of the same cast members and the same makeup artist, and they shot it back to back with this one. So it feels like, hey, let's do this. Let's see how audiences would have enjoyed these movies back to back. So start with Wolfman, then go into Ghost of Frankenstein.
All right. Well, I mean, and I would go with Shocker.
Okay.
Not because it's good, but rather because it's another electricity monster.
Hey, Shocker and Ghost of Frankenstein both have great opening theme songs. I all joking aside, I actually think the Frankenstein, if we're talking about the old Universal movies, which I'm sure I'm the only one that's dorky enough to care this much about those themes, but I think Frankenstein and Creature are the top of the musical theme song. They're just very abrasive and loud for the time. So
if we wanted to go with another abrasive one, theme, I believe that Andy Warhol's Frankenstein has a pretty eclectic soundtrack.
It's one of those movies, Scott, where when you watch it, you can't help but wonder what's going on.
Nice segue.
Thank you. So we've got a couple things real quick. First of all, we got an online store, which is filled with awesome t-shirts. You should go and hit up those t-shirts. Buy some. hmnpodcast.com. If you love the conversations that we have, there are many other conversations that we're having that you can be listening to just by going to patreon.com/HMNpodcast. And if you're in the Gettysburg area, we don't know exactly what we're doing quite yet, but we will be at Creature Feature Weekend in April. So mark your calendars.
420.
Come on down. It's going to be a good time. And word on the street is that Kyle has something that he wants to talk about as well.
Here's what's going on, everyone. So February 2020, 2 weeks before the world shut down, shot a music video in my grandmother's basement. And it was great. It was very fun. It was a music video for an artist called Certain Self. The song was called Hello Body. We did like a little alien abduction thing for like, $500. Like, we made a room in my grandmother's basement with walls made of boat shrink wrap, like that I spent hours heating up to tighten on like this wall so that it had this weird sheen, like this weird UFO thing. It was awesome. I can't believe how long ago it was now. But the pandemic hit. Zeno, the artist, shelved the song and the video. Everybody went through a big change, in especially artists in themselves and like what they wanted to put out and all this stuff. So I respected it, but was also bummed because I was like, oh man, we made a really cool video. There's some VHS aspects to it. Anyway, the song's out, the video's out, the song is killer. He actually even remastered it and produced it a little bit more. The song's even better than the first time that we shot it. The video's out, the video's cool. So check out Certain Self, singular self, Certain Self, Hello Body. And then there's
you
two
did post
tracks.
it on our Facebook page.
I did. I posted it on the Facebook group.
Which is a good reminder. Go search Horror Movie Night on Facebook and join our group. We're very eclectic
it's
bunch.
honestly the only reason that I'm on Facebook anymore is this group. Otherwise I would not. Like, I would be gone from there. But the group is very nice. The group's very fun. And you can find the video there. You can find kind of all of our little fixins there. So, anyway, that's what I had. Go check it out and go listen to the song. It's on Spotify. It's on Bandcamp. It's on Apple Music. It's very fun. Zeno's a good dude.
I love the fact that you built the walls of the room with shrink. With boat shrink wrap, basically.
Dude, my dad used to work at a marina, and I was like, that is the kind of what I want for the walls. I was like, that feels alien. It feels sterile. It feels weird.
Perfect.
And it's
a great
cool.
video.
I mean, like, because I watched it and I was like, I was wondering, like, how did it get put together and why did it sit for 3 years? And I mean, it all makes sense. I wasn't, there was no judgment. But it's very interesting to have a little look behind the curtain of the production of it.
Yeah. I mean, I really honestly didn't expect it to come out. At this point in time, I thought it was over. I used a little bit of it in my reel, but other than that, like, I didn't have, I want to respect, I don't want to push him on his artistic endeavors and what he was doing, and he was producing other people's music, and then he was out on tour and all this stuff. The 1 week I see that he posted the song, and I was like, oh,
It's happening.
But then I was like, also, as any of us who work on things go, sometimes you just have a change of heart. So it's like, maybe, I was like, I had to be like, maybe he doesn't want the video, and like, I have to accept that too, but
I was going to say, did he tell you he was putting out the video, or were you just surprised when it was finally put out?
I was surprised when the song was put out, and I reached out to him and I was like, hey man, just wondering if you're interested in the video. I can go in and like put the new track underneath. Also, no worries if not, because not for anything. I got paid and I have some footage, so it's like at the very least, the thing works for me, and if it works for him, it works for him. But he was like, nah. I'm like, I was gonna hit you up, but he was on tour with We Are Scientists, I think.
Oh, nice.
And he was so he was just putting out his own stuff while he could, and the song is great. So anyway, that's what I had going on.
You're not done talking, Kyle, because
oh god,
while the listeners may be just hearing this the week after the last episode, we haven't recorded in a hot minute, so that means that there's plenty of time for you to tell us what over the last month you may have watched, read, listened to, etc., that you wanna give a quick shout out to. As Kyle logs into Letterboxd to see what
did anybody talk about Incantation when it came out?
No, I don't even know what that is.
Incantation, it's a Netflix distributed Taiwanese found footage horror movie. And one of the incentives when we had done the Indiegogo for Ouchie, or formerly known as The Womb Within, was that if you were an executive producer, you could ask Jeanette and I to record a little commentary, or basically a podcast of a movie of your choosing. So one of our producers chose Incantation. And Jeanette and I both had... and we might put out this episode just as like a bonus thing on Horrors of Love at some point in time, but basically it's fun. You know, it had some it was like a folk found footage horror movie that then also requested sort of involvement from the audience in some ways. Like there is a literal incantation that is said or to be said that, you know, the narrator prompts the audience to be involved with. You know, there is general found footage tropes that are, I wouldn't say annoying, but are expected. But then there's other stuff that's actually genuinely scary. And I think for me, an international found footage horror movie requires me to, by nature, is taking me a second or two longer to keep up. So then the scares are effective. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
okay,
you're not ahead of the story because you're
not at all. Like, I'm actually sort of in the story. I'm participating. But it is about a mother who gets her daughter back from the foster care system and is trying to reintegrate her young daughter into her life. She's trying to prove that she can be, a fine mother, but she's basically haunted by something that has happened in her past. She was like kind of like a ghost hunter, or sort of like a paranormal like YouTuber with a couple people. So you kind of bounce between timelines a little bit. But it's fun. I mean, like, I think I've been hesitant for Netflix produced or distributed horror because I think a lot of times it kind of misses, or a lot of times it feels sort of the same. And I think that sometimes we fall into that with Shudder too, but at least Shudder has a little bit more of a range. Netflix, Shudder, I feel like, is always the same type of thing.
I would also say that Shudder only does one monthly release, so it's a little bit more like thought out versus like I think Netflix drops like 7 original produced things every single week. And it's
Shudder feels, that's the thing, Shudder feels curated, while Netflix feels like this is the slate and dropped. You know, like and some, you know, some of those are hit. Like Incantation was a hit for me. I wouldn't have ever ventured it that way unless it got suggested to me, right? Like, I wouldn't have.
I think that's the safe way to, at this point with like Netflix stuff, unless one of the like 3 TikTok film review accounts that I follow says like, hey, this new Netflix thing is good, I'm not likely to check it out, because I feel like most of their original content, especially when it comes to like movies, is trash. For every one good movie a year, there's like 20 that feel like you've wasted an hour or two watching.
Right. And you know, there's so much that we all want to sift through that I don't want to waste. And you know, I mean, I say it all the time. There's time is so limited. You know, so I, you know, while it was sort of homework in some aspects, I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun watching it, and I'd recommend it for anybody. I mean, I don't think that people really have the found footage fatigue that we had before, and it's charming, you know, like
it's charming again. It's not, it's like zombies. At some point, zombies will be charming again. Yeah. If we go another like 5-6 years of there not being 10 zombie films every year.
Right. Exactly.
I'm gonna jump on that, on talking about something that I watched that I've been told to watch for, I think, close to 2 years. And I'm just a bad friend because my friend made it and I still didn't get around to watching it. But I realized I had not been utilizing my Shudder subscription at all over the last year and a half. So I was like, all right, let's start rocking through some of these movies on Shudder that everyone told me to check out. And I finally watched Glorious. And it lived up to its name. It's a glorious movie. It's
so good.
It's a great, like, what can you do with a small cast, fairly limited location, and it's just it shouldn't move as smoothly as it does for what it is, and it just works.
And it's also funny, like a really good story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, the twists are good, the comedy works, like everything about it works. And
did you watch it, Kyle?
No, I have not.
So
I think that you would love it.
You would love
and
it.
I know I would. Like, I mean, you thought you were a bad friend, Matt. Like,
well, I mean,
I'm fine,
again,
but...
it's short. That's a big.
Yeah.
That's a big plus. It's like 75 to 80 minutes long. It's basically just one guy stuck in a bathroom, talking to a cosmic god through a glory hole.
And it's glorious.
It's fantastic. It's really, really well made. So I'm sure I'm one of the last people who would like Glorious, who hasn't watched Glorious besides Kyle. So I'm kind of just yelling this into the ether. But in case there's someone
if you
like
forgot
me who
about
put it off, check it out.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, take us home, baby.
And in that same vein, I would like to save this for my first official pick of the year, but I've got other stuff to talk about for that, because I don't need to dovetail what did we watches with the themes of the week.
But you love order.
I do, a very type A person. So Megan said, "Oh, do you want to watch The Village?" And I was like, "The M. Night Shyamalan movie?" And she said, "Yeah, it's good." And I'm like, if you're suggesting it, sure. I think it was on Max or Hulu. I can't remember. But we watched it over the course of 2 nights, and my God, is that movie amazing. I knew the twist. I knew the twist.
So I have never seen The Village. And I think I've mentioned to you guys that I was listening to the Screen Drafts podcast lately, and they did a whole episode. They do a thing called Super Draft, where they'll rank everything by a specific director. And I was floored that The Village was like top 3 on their M. Night draft, because the reason I didn't see The Village was everyone told me when it came out in 2004 how ass it was. And they even said in that episode, they're like, this movie's going to get reevaluated in a big way.
Yes.
And
you know what it is, though? It's pretty much the template for every A24 movie that's come out. That's
what they said. They were like, this is all of the A24 movies before there was A24 movies.
Yeah,
like,
and it's like proto folk horror too. Like it's and I was watching and I was saying to Megan as we were finishing it last night, I said, if this movie was made now, because it's a 20-year-old movie now.
20 years.
I think it's 20
when it celebrated 20 years. It was 2004.
2004. Yeah. So this is 20. If it had been made more recently, they would have definitely leaned into the religion portion of it, because I was shocked by the fact that I think there were only 2 moments where they even referenced God or the Lord's Prayer or anything like that, because like if it was made now, they'd be doomsday preppers, and it would be that they're religious, fundamentalists.
Scott, the big question though, could we get an episode out of it, or
is
it too good for our blood? Yeah.
I think that we could do one by subverting expectations, and because it's a beautiful movie. It's cinematically fantastic. The soundtrack is great. The acting is fantastic. It's folk horror.
I actually don't think I know the twist.
Oh,
is that
okay?
Then we'll
keep it. Don't read it.
Yeah,
bro.
Just enjoy it.
I think that we'll do it in 2024 then, since it's the 20-year anniversary of it.
Yeah, why the fuck not? All right, sounds like a plan. And also a plan was what was in this movie when Igor planned to have his brain
not
put
as
into
good
Frankenstein.
Not listen. Segue as the last one.
I burned my good one in the middle of the episode. We'll be back next week with another sequel, so stay tuned for that.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.